All right, Stephen, there was one thing we wanted to take a closer look at this week, and it has to do with AI. Because IBM and Facebook's parent company Meta have decided that they're going to advocate for a more open approach to AI. They've announced the Joint AI Alliance Group. Companies are a part of a growing trend that see AI should not be about proprietary closed models and protocols. Some of the other companies that have signed on to this include people that you probably recognize, like Dell, Sony, AMD, Intel, lots of other little AI startups. Now, they probably seem like they're diametrically opposed to the other names in AI that you probably are familiar with, like OpenAI, Google, and Microsoft, who are focused on creating AI rules that may favor outcomes which are more favorable to their company, which is one of the things that the AI Alliance Group is alleging. We're going to see a lot of competition between them and other companies that are really big in the space, like NVIDIA and, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, you name it. So I'm kind of curious to get your take on this, Stephen, because we've always talked about different aspects to AI than what you might see in the news. And having this call for openness in AI, do you think it's going to force a harder conversation for these people? Or is it just going to set up battle lines for another protracted argument?
Well, I think there's multiple ways that we could see this story. Certainly, one of the ways that we could look at it is cynically. And Tom, I trust you to look at this story with the most cynical possible lens. And the cynical take on this is really, Meta and IBM are going to lead a charge for openness and transparency and fairness and social progress in AI. Meta and IBM. Okay, so we could take that approach. We could also look at this from sort of a cynical market lens and say, okay, let's see, who are these companies? Let's see, these are the companies that are maybe trailing a little bit. We've talked before about how Microsoft and OpenAI and NVIDIA, are just eating everyone's lunch in this space, and everyone else is playing catch up. And basically, most of the companies playing catch up are throwing their weight behind the OpenAI alliance. So we could look at it that way as sort of a clash of titans, or we could look at it on the face of it. So I want to start on the face of it. What are they saying the OpenAI Alliance is for? And then we can maybe get a little bit cynical and snarky because, hey, this is the Gestalt IT rundown after all. So let's look at it. So first off, what is the AI Alliance? So the idea is that this would be an organization that would focus on accelerating open AI technology and transparency, that would advocate for things like safety and security, for responsible use of AI, that they would bring together all sorts of companies that are building this stuff. They would build things together in an open way. Now, I assume that kind of means open source and open source models, open source tools. We'll see. It seems like that's the direction that they would head. That they would enable people and train people and build up an alternative open ecosystem. And most importantly, that they would advocate. So this OpenAI Alliance would be present in the debate in national capitals and politics, in the world of public opinion, in the news. Basically, they would be out there saying, hey, hang on. I know that people are worried about AI, but if we as a society, as a world, get together and we figure out ways of dealing with AI technology, that we can approach this in a more responsible way, that we can have better policy, better regulations, and of course, ultimately, better AI tools than what is being developed sort of in secret by these major Silicon Valley firms. So that's the positive way to look at this. I wonder, Tom, do you have any snark to share?
Oh, I always have snark to share, but I think in this particular case, it speaks to the point that you raised, that when you look at the group of people who's behind this, they are not the names that you think of when you immediately think of AI research. And how do you prevent someone from gaining an insurmountable lead? Well, you can either run faster than they can, or you can argue with the ref that they need to slow down. And I think that that's what's happening here. Because you'll note that they have created an alliance that is designed to argue that everything should be open and freely shareable, and we can all build on the same stuff so that nobody gets the same lead. If you are a fan of car racing, you know what this feels like. because everybody uses the same engine, because everybody has the same restrictions. The only thing that's different is the stickers on the outside of your car, because nobody is allowed to go faster than a certain limit, and if they do, they find ways to make it all fair. So that means that it's down to the skill of the driver, right? Or in this case, the skill of the developers. But I don't think that this is actually going to fix their problem, because the looming thing in the back that nobody has realized is that in order to ensure that everything is open and safe and secure, do you know what that means? Regulation. Because the unstated goal was, we want this to be open and free and fair for us to use because we want to make extra money. Sorry, did I say the quiet part out loud? Can you trust a corporation to regulate itself? On the face of it, no. Because a corporation's job is not to make the world a better place. The corporation's job is to make money. And they're going to do that for their shareholders. So if you want a company to do the right thing, you basically have to create an environment where they are not able to do anything but the right thing, on top of making a little bit of money on the side. That means government regulation. And I think that that's where this will eventually evolve to, is that the only way to ensure that this is the case is to have some kind of a government entity, whether it's the EU or the US or whomever, step in and say, we are going to create guidelines, guardrails for AI to ensure that it has the best interests of humans at heart, not humans that have invested in your company. And so I worry that you've effectively unleashed a sleeping giant, to quote the oft-used idiom, of the government is just one step away from coming into this and saying, well, we like your ideas, but we're going to take it one step further. And then nobody's going to be happy, which honestly could be the most equitable situation. But Stephen, do you have a different negative outtake on this?
Well, I think that I'm going to get negative here a little bit on some of the press surrounding this. Now, what I've heard, the initial reactions that I've heard from this has been a lot of really Meta and IBM, really? And then a lot of, okay, I see. So you can't compete with CUDA, you can't compete with OpenAI, so you're going to throw your weight behind anything that gives you an advantage. I could see that. But here's the thing. Ultimately, what will come out of this is basically what comes out of it. I mean, I don't want to get too, namby-pamby about it, but, this could actually be a good thing. Some of the other people involved in this are people that I respect in the industry. Some people, for example, that created MLPerf and Hugging Face and Llama and Stable Diffusion and some of these other tools. Well, they're part of this thing too. So it's not just PyTorch versus CUDA, Meta versus AWS, versus Microsoft versus Google. This is a lot of different people, a lot of different and real people who really care trying to do things. Now, is that going to make any difference? I'm not sure. But as you point out, Tom, I think that the sword of Damocles is hanging over AI no matter what. Everywhere you look, in public opinion, not tech opinion, in public opinion of AI is negative, negative, negative. The Daily, or the Last Week Tonight just did a thing where they showed all sorts of people in the news comparing AI to the Terminator, because that's the metaphor that everyone uses when they think about AI. It's going to come and kill us. It's Skynet. It's going to murder us in our sleep. That's the kind of attitude that the world has. And if you look at what governments are doing, they're reacting to that very, very strongly. Now, I personally feel that the Biden administration's executive order was actually quite nuanced and quite positive. But that being said, it's still pretty isolated from the people who are actually building the tools, building the solutions, using these solutions. I think that the AI Alliance could actually help to connect some of those people who are building this stuff with the government in a positive way. Now, why is it being created? Well, it's obviously being created for commercial reasons. But it's also created because, frankly, if that sword falls, you should probably think about what that means for the industry. We've got governments in Europe and in North America that are very concerned about AI. We've got governments in the Middle East and that are much less concerned about AI and pushing development forward. And we've got a very strange political dynamic here. Now, what we need to do, and I mean all of these people all around the world, is we need to get together and we need to figure out how to deal with this new technology that we've created. Frankly, it reminds me of when I was back in college and I was studying pugwash and things like that, and the reactions to the creation of the atomic bomb. Essentially, we humans have created a technology that has huge potential but also huge risks, and we humans need to get together and deal with this technology. If the AI Alliance pushes that forward, despite the commercial stuff and all this that's going on, fine, I'll take it. I just think that we as an industry need to get together and we need to be answering these questions. And one more thing, let's address the word open. One of the challenges with what's going on right now, if you look at OpenAI, which ironically has the word open in their name too, you look at what they're doing with their GPT models, you look at what Microsoft is doing, you look at CUDA and NVIDIA, these are very much, let's say contained solutions, controlled solutions. I think that the AI world is on the cusp of open alternatives that run anywhere on anything that do much of the same things. And that is going to really crack open Pandora's box. Because it's one thing if ChatGPT can pass the Turing test. It's quite a different thing if the model that runs on your laptop or your phone can pass the Turing test. And that's what's happening next.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would add on that one of the things that people need to understand is in order for this to work, we all have to agree on what the standards are going to be. And we all have to decide what kind of social mores we're going to impart to AI. Because, like it or not, AI is not magical, mystical intelligence that has been developed from the ether. It's an amplification of who we are as a people. And all it takes is one person deciding that, or one group of people deciding that they don't like the restrictions and they're just going to let the leash off. And then it becomes a problem. Anyone who's ever studied, zero-sum games and the prisoner's dilemma know that everybody has to be all in for this to be advantageous. As soon as someone decides to cut and run, you've got a problem. And I think that opening things up is going to help because rather than using the word open, I wish they would say it for what it really is, transparent. Everybody has visibility into what's going on. Everybody plays by the same rule set. I referenced racing earlier, and it actually is a really good way to think about it. Everybody has to start from the same base. And you know what your restrictions are, and you know what your areas for improvement could be. But you can't improve very much. So it ultimately comes down to how can you iterate on the systems that you have to make it work better. I mean, we've seen, you and I are huge sci-fi fans, and we've seen that for years. Go all the way back to Asimov, the 3 rules. You have to make the best robot you can that still adheres to the 3 rules, the 3 laws of robotics, right? That, to me, is where we're getting to in AI, is that we're all going to have to make this decision, and we're all going to have to agree that we're going to follow those rules, because if we don't know what's going to happen. And no open advocacy group is going to fix that. No closed source group is going to be able to repair that damage. And it has massive possibility for impact on the human race.